Okay, let's treat this as your own personal financial coaching session. Today, we're diving into a problem that, believe it or not, traps even the highest earners out there. It's called the high income poverty trap, and it's the real reason so many people feel totally broke, even when they're pulling in a six-figure salary. We're going to show you exactly how to get out of it.
So let's kick things off with a real-world story that might just hit a little too close to home for some of you. Picture a doctor in Chicago. On paper, she looks incredibly successful, right? Making $380,000 a year, leasing a brand new BMW, kids in private school, the whole nine yards. But what's the reality? The reality is she is stretched so thin that a surprise $5,000 bill would be an absolute disaster. And this isn't some made-up story. For many, this is their day-to-day financial reality. And you know what? That doctor is not alone, not even close. A recent Goldman Sachs report dropped a bombshell statistic. 41%. 41% of Americans earning between $300,000 and $500,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. That's nearly 4 out of every 10 people making up to $500,000 who have basically no financial buffer. It's staggering. So, the big question is, how does this even happen? How do people who are supposed to be financially secure end up in this trap? Well, the first step in any good coaching session is the diagnosis. So let's break down what this high-income poverty trap actually is.
It all boils down to one single, really powerful principle: lifestyle inflation. It's this sneaky thing that happens so gradually you barely even notice it. You get a promotion, and suddenly that $15 lunch you used to get becomes a $25 lunch. That car that worked just fine becomes a leased luxury vehicle. See, each upgrade feels totally deserved. I mean, you earned it, right? But while your spending compounds, your savings rate stays flat. Or worse, it stays at zero.
So how do you know if you're stuck in this trap? Let's do a quick diagnostic check. Just be honest with yourself. Do you earn a great salary but are constantly filled with this low-grade financial anxiety? Has your savings rate just not budged, even though you've gotten raises? Have your fixed costs, the mortgage, the car payments, swelled up to eat almost your entire paycheck? If you're nodding along to any of this, chances are you're in the trap. Okay, getting out of this trap takes more than just a new budget. It really requires a fundamental shift in how you think about money. And this brings us to the most important part of our coaching today: understanding the mindset gap between people who just look rich and people who are rich. Let's dig into the real millionaire mindset. And this is where we see the biggest disconnect. Appearing wealthy and being wealthy are driven by completely opposite behaviors. It's wild. The person who looks rich is driving that flashy leased car and living in a huge house. But the person who's actually wealthy, they're often the ones driving a 10-year-old truck, living in a totally normal, modest home. And here's the key: they're consistently investing over 15% of their income. They care about their balance sheet, not about appearances. Researchers actually have a name for these real wealth builders. It comes from the classic book, The Millionaire Next Door. They're called prodigious accumulators of wealth, or PAWs for short. And being a PAW has absolutely nothing to do with your salary and everything to do with your habits. So here's a simple little formula from that book you can use as a personal benchmark right now. Just take your age, multiply it by your annual pre-tax income, and then divide that number by 10. That's a rough target for what your net worth should be. And if your actual net worth is way below that number, you're what the authors call an under-accumulator of wealth. Basically, you're spending your income instead of building it. Okay, so if the math is pretty simple, spend less than you earn, why is this trap so effective and so hard to get out of? Well, because it's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. We have to look at the hidden psychological forces that are working against you.
There are 3 really powerful forces at play here. First, there's something called the hedonic treadmill. That's just a fancy way of saying that as you earn more, your definition of enough just keeps moving higher and higher. Second, social comparison. Those perfectly curated Instagram feeds create this intense, unspoken pressure to keep up. And third, there's commitment creep. Once you enroll your kids in that expensive private school or buy the vacation home, those upgrades become fixed costs that feel almost impossible to undo. And this trap also gets you on a smaller level, through the creep of convenience. I mean, look at this. Spending on things like food delivery, streaming services, and ride shares just goes up year after year. One subscription doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But when you add them all up, you're just siphoning away thousands of dollars a year that could be building real wealth, all for a tiny bit of convenience. All right, this is the most important part of our session today.
We've diagnosed the problem, we understand the forces behind it. So now, let's build your escape plan, a clear 3-step action plan to break free for good.
Here's your plan. It's 3 steps. First, you have to audit ruthlessly. And I mean ruthlessly. Go through every single recurring cost and ask yourself, is this truly worth the money? Second, define intentionally. You've got to get crystal clear on what spending actually aligns with your values versus what's just for status or convenience. And finally, number 3, the absolute game changer, automate aggressively. This is how you make saving non-negotiable.
This right here, this simple phrase, is the entire mindset shift you need to make. See, most people try to save whatever's left over at the end of the month, which, as they find out, is usually nothing. But the real wealth accumulators, they flip the script. They pay themselves first by automatically saving, and then they live on whatever is left. Saving is the priority, not an afterthought. Now let's just look at the real-world impact of that automation step. The math here is just undeniable. A person making $300,000 who saves just 5% of their income, well, they end up with about $650,000 after 20 years. That's not bad. But a person with the exact same income who automates a 30% savings rate, they end up with $4 million. That difference isn't just a number on a page. That's life-changing freedom. So, in the end, it all comes down to this one simple, powerful question you have to ask yourself. What are you truly optimizing for? Are you optimizing for your lifestyle right now? Or are you optimizing for your freedom in the next decade? One path is about maximizing today's consumption. The other means accepting some limits now in exchange for true financial independence down the road. That's the choice that determines whether a high income leads to real wealth or just a more expensive trap. The choice is yours.